Hey Jake, how are you?
Mate, I am brilliant. Buzzing to be here. Can't wait for it.
I'm really excited to have you on the podcast as well, my friend. Like it's been a while since we first started talking, and as soon as we first started talking, I was like, I need to get this guy on the podcast. It's the stuff that you've done. I don't really like doing things like saying in terms of like defining people by their age, but the stuff that you've done at your age is actually very, very astounding. So it's such a
Yeah.
pleasure to have you on the podcast, man. Yeah, welcome.
Appreciate that, bro. Don't try to gas my ego too much.
Yeah, 25 minutes of just fucking gassing your ego.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, man, it'll be good before we jump in, just to like, I guess, give people a bit of background about yourself, like just give a bit of an intro.
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Jake. I went through the whole system, the GCSEs, the A levels. I did pretty well in those, and as a result, I started a YouTube channel, basically creating content around that. How you can have a bit of balance with fitness, with study, with social, whilst studying those subjects. I came out with decent grades, wanted to share that. And then that ended up snowballing into a bit of a network effect. I got to meet loads of really, really cool people. I ended up interning at this wicked company, and I'm now actually head of growth for that company. And I guess we'll dive into that in this podcast.
Hmm. At like you're 19 now, right?
Yes, just turned 19 a month ago. In fact, a month and one
Yeah,
day.
yeah. It's pretty crazy, right? Like, let's go back a bit more. So, you you started a company as an intern, but like even before that,
Yes.
so you started a YouTube channel. What was the sort of motivation behind this YouTube channel?
Yeah. So I guess since I was like a kid, I've always been obsessed with making videos. Like I just love creating content for other people to see. Like it started with the typical, I know, 14, 15-year-old bottle hit montages, like COD montages, all of that. And I just got used to the editing software and thought it was really cool. But obviously back then, no one really cared because it's just entertainment. There's no like real value behind it. So then coming out of my exams, I actually had the ambition to get all nines at GCSE, which would have meant like the highest possible grades. I somehow managed to finesse that, and then that sparked a conversation while I was in the gym with a few of my mates. They were like, "Okay, why don't we just all start YouTube channels? Like, how cool would it be to be able to make?" Like to live off of a YouTube channel, to put out content for other people to see, and start to build this community of like people all committed to personal development and improving
Mm.
themselves. We all went home, filmed a video that night. I uploaded it about a week later, just kind of on a whim. It was just an introduction to the channel, like what sort of content I'd be posting. Didn't really expect anything of it. I started posting once a week, little study videos. Posted that for about 2, 3 months without any viewership, like maybe 100 to 200 views per video. At that time, my mates ended up getting demotivated and stopped posting. But it was around 5 months in, after posting consistently for that time, that one of my first videos just suddenly took off. Like it was 4 months after I initially uploaded it. It was on about 500 views at the time, and then suddenly within about 3 months, it hit 50,000 views. And then I was like,
Wow.
okay, this is insane. Like I could see the like power of the algorithm and the value that I was adding. So because I was
Mm.
offering that value, students were resonating with it. They were finding it helpful, and as a result, they were engaging and then seeing the algorithm take it off and promote it to all of these other students. And I felt like YouTube had defined my audience for me and was pushing out my content to that audience. So after that,
Mm.
all of my other videos started to take off, and I was in a really, really solid position. But at the time, this was just prior to lockdown. I was super excited. Like I actually made a video of what to expect in 2020, and that was I was going on this like internship at a nuclear fusion plant. I was like really into the course. I was ready to smash out exams, but then COVID hit, and suddenly everything just went tits up. Like I lost the internship, all of my views dropped, and everything just kind of disappeared. Like all of that momentum, all of that hype, it completely reset me, and I was like, yeah, it was quite an emotional stage because I built up all of this and spent so much time on it, and then suddenly nothing. So I was like, I could go two ways. I could just accept that and just like go into a bit of a depressive state and not really do much, or I could run with what I've got now. So
Mm.
I actually went out and bought a camera, and I started vlogging my lockdown experience. So I'd get up at sunrise every day. I'd do workouts, and I just wanted to make the most of that lockdown. It didn't get a huge viewership, but it was like it made me find my passion for content creation and passion for actually creating videos around lifestyle and around my day-to-day actions and vlogs as opposed to just purely informational videos.
Mm.
Then as lockdown started to ease up, I started going really hard with that content. I started picking up the exams again. People started to get back into exams, get back into revision because they had exams. and the viewership started to take off again. And then I kind of just built up the momentum from there. And yeah, that's kind of snowballed into where my channel is now with 35,000 subscribers and around 2.5 million views. And that's kind of where we're stood.
What I find crazy about what you just said, just to highlight it for people listening, is that you spent 5 months doing it without getting any views, and
Yeah.
most of your friends that you started it with just lost interest and stopped uploading. And then you got to a stage where you also got to like you got less views, you said, because of the lockdown.
Yeah.
And then like again you pivoted and you got more views from there, now 35,000 subscribers. I guess like the key lesson here is the consistency factor, right? Like a lot of your
100%.
friends stopped, but you carried on. But like, why did you decide to carry on? Like, why didn't you decide to give up in that moment?
I think it's because I had different intent when it came to starting the channel with my mates. My mates had the intent of, okay, I want this to turn into something. I want to be successful with it, and like, I want to inevitably make money for it. For me, it
So,
was
so
just
success for them was like making money from YouTube. That's
yeah,
their definition of
and
success. That's what it was. Okay.
for sure. But for me, it was just like I loved making the content. Like I had fun editing the videos, and it kind of played on my childhood love for like the bottle flipping montages or whatever, but now with the
Yeah.
focus on value. And I just found it so cool to be able to take all of my learnings, put it into like an entertaining video, and yeah, make that format. Even if no one watched it, if it was like 10 to 100 people watching it, that was enough for me to keep making that content. I didn't really feel like I needed the success. It was just an internal drive, and I enjoyed making it.
So you didn't really expect anything from that. You didn't expect like
Not at all.
views. You didn't expect anything like likes. You just expected. We didn't expect anything. You just wanted to make videos for your own fun.
Yeah, essentially.
That's really, really cool, man. Yeah. So at what stage do you think like, yeah, this is taking off? Like this is, I'm enjoying this. This is like, this can be something fairly big.
I think there were a few moments like that. So the first one was just before the lockdown. I think I was on about 2,500 subscribers, and I'd just been accepted into the YouTube Partner Program. So this was like, oh, I can start to earn ad revenue from my videos, even if it was like, for example, each video was probably 10 to 15 pennies. Like it wasn't a significant sum.
Mm.
But at that point, I was like, okay, I can make a small amount from this. Then over lockdown, that's when I hit 5,000 subscribers, and I got my first sponsorship request from an external company. They basically reached out to the email I had listed on my profile and were like, "Hey, we're a company. The company was actually called Easy A. Can we pay to have a integration in one of your videos?" And this was like crazy to me. The fact that I built up this audience and now suddenly I can actually leverage it to make money. I was like, wow, this could be something to go down. But again, it still didn't change my mindset. Like I didn't go down the business route with YouTube. It was very much still just passion oriented, but that happened to be like a bonus. And then over time, those sponsorship requests just became more and more until now it's actually developed into a somewhat sustainable income. Um, but again, at no point do I want it to shift into just being completely business oriented. I want it to be
Mm.
internally driven and just have that as a side effect or like a bonus. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, I think that first sponsor request was when I was like, I made the realization that I could make some money from this.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that is really cool. I remember my first sponsorship on the podcast. It was the same sort of feeling. Like I remember I was
Yeah,
episode number maybe 30, like one of the 30s, like within like, yeah, 30s. And I got an email, a LinkedIn message from a brand. And at that point, when I was like around the sort of 30 mark, I was thinking like, is this going to go anywhere? This podcast, like, it's just, I don't
yeah,
know. I'm just making it for fun more than anything. And that really, and it was like, at the time, it was like fairly big money. It was like, I don't mind sharing. It's like £500. And like, for me, I was like, that's quite
wow,
a lot for like a
yeah,
sponsorship. And I was like, this could be something big because I'm quite small now and somehow manage this big company to
yeah,
like sponsor the podcast. And so from there, really motivated me to carry on. And I think that's probably the same feeling that you had. I don't know, like if the sponsorship was like more or less, but like that, yeah, I definitely share what happened to you because yeah, I experienced it too.
yeah, for sure. I think mine was on a slightly more minor scale, but because I was a lot younger, the money meant more. So the first sponsorship request I had no idea how much to charge. So I offered £75, but for
Yeah.
me that was like 10 hours of work if I was earning 750 an hour. So that was like mind boggling. And then over time, people told me that actually I could charge more. So I started charging more.
If I'm being honest with you though, it's not even about the level of the money. It's just the very act of a brand paying you to post a
Yeah.
video. That's what it was. Like it wasn't even if they offered me like £100 or like yeah, even less than £75 that you were like paid, I would have still taken it and like had the same level of motivation. To be honest, the money itself
Yeah.
didn't. It was more just the very act of them paying. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
It's
It
almost like
wasn't
the
about
recognition.
yeah. That's literally what, like you found a podcast and you're willing to put some budget behind this. It was just that act, and
Yeah.
yeah, it just really motivated me to carry on. Like same with you. I guess once you did get that sponsorship, what was the next step after that?
Next step for me, just continue to put out the content I was putting out. In fact, it almost inspired me to go a bit harder with it and produce better quality content. So I was really focusing on just like how can I improve the videos, how can I offer more value, and how can I keep them as entertaining as possible. So from that point, I guess I was more oriented around building that audience and like growing the channel. But again, having the prime focus on how can I make sure that I'm enjoying the process no matter what.
Mm.
And there have been times where I felt like I've started to enjoy the process less, and I have to continually remind myself that if I keep going, it's going to bring better like financial prospect, but also I need to change up the content so that I'm continuing to enjoy it. Because if I'm not enjoying it, like there's no point. Do you
How
know
do
what I
you
mean?
stay, Jake? How do you stay consistent and also loving that process? Because even for me, for this podcast, even though I love doing it, there are certain moments, I won't lie, where I'm like, oh, maybe I should just miss this week, or like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you stay
Yeah.
motivated and also consistent?
That's a great question. And if you'd asked me a month ago, I would have given you a very definitive answer. But this last month, given like lots of external factors and life getting in the way a bit, that has slipped. But I'm keen to get back on it. I think it's just about, well, for me, producing the content, because it's content that I love producing. As soon as I look back on the previous videos that I've made, that love and passion for it comes back because I'm like, I can appreciate all of those, the memories that are in the videos because it's like a lifestyle vlog, so I can relive my past. B, like capturing those moments with the exact emotions that I felt at that time, if not amplified through the music, through the editing, and almost creating
Mm.
like a piece of art that you're really happy to watch, and it like instills the emotions that you like felt at that time. And knowing that I've been able to create that content before, it makes me want to capture everything that I'm living through now in that same light, and that like inspires me to sit down and edit all of those videos. So like right
Mm.
now, I've had a backlog of about 4 months of content that I haven't yet edited, but I rewatched some of my past videos and just like it captures the joy there, and that makes me now want to go down and edit all of the last 4 months.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. So, like, how I know people will be listening, so who want
Yeah,
to get into YouTube, and like we'll talk about Manor in a second. But for YouTube, do you have any like because you've been doing it for what a year and a half? You said like during the first lockdown, so like a year and
just
a
over
half,
two.
2 years,
Oh, actually, yeah, a year and a half. Yeah, no.
yeah, year and a half, 2 years, and you've grown to 35,000 subscribers now. What's just like key learnings that you've observed that people can take away? Because I know so many people want to start a YouTube channel.
Yeah, for sure. I think key learning for me is make sure you know your value. So, like, what value is it that you can offer, and how can you offer it better than anyone else? Because at the end of the day, that is how my channel started. If I just started with the lifestyle vlogs, I'm like 90% sure the growth would have been a fraction or like an order of magnitude smaller than it is. So what value can you offer, and how can you offer that value in as engaging a format as possible? And as soon as you've got that down, it's just a matter of being consistent, and then over time hoping that YouTube picks one of those videos up in the algorithm, and then that snowballs into the rest of your channel growing. So
Mm.
focus on the value that you can offer, build that audience, and then you can transition into content that's more exciting or more fun for you, if that makes sense. I think
Mm.
that's the key learning for me.
No, that's wonderful. And even with like any sort of content creation, I think it's consistency that's key. Like
Yeah.
I do a lot of content. YouTube's like one of the only ones I don't do, even though the podcast is also on YouTube. Like even if you're listening on the pot in the on YouTube, then shout out to you.
Big
But
up.
like it's the consistency factor. Podcasting doesn't have that algorithm that YouTube has.
Yeah.
So you could be more lucky, but even with podcasting, it is that consistency. I do blogging as well. Blogging is the consistency, and like one of your blogs will take off. And like I did a podcast a while ago, solo one, talking about how much I've made through like one blog. But that one blog was an accumulation of like being consistent and writing like
Yeah.
almost every other week. So consistency for me is like probably the most beneficial, I guess, the best one to take away. But like
Yeah.
quality and quantity, if you can join them together, that's the best one, obviously. Um,
Yeah.
so let's talk about Mana now. How did that come about?
Yeah, so this is actually another reason why I strongly recommend starting a YouTube channel. Is it like drastically improves your reach and expands your network. Like suddenly, all of these people that are watching your videos, they tend to, if they resonate with you and your message, they'll reach out and they'll like see how you're doing, see if there's any potential collaboration. So a company called Uniwise, the founder reached out to me and just asked for a sponsorship. I got talking to him about it. We ended up really liking each other's vibe, each other's like personalities. He offered to almost like mentor me and talk me through like negotiations with my channel and like help me to grow it because he really like resonated with the value that I was offering. I took him up on that. He was an amazing guy. In fact, his name's Oliver Rutherford, absolute legend, and has drastically improved my life. But he introduced me to someone called Alia who was working at a company called Mana, and they were a company for creators aiming to help them to monetize and expand their audience and create that community around that. I was like, okay, this is epic. Let me chat to Alia. So Ollie set up a meeting with me and Alia. I got talking to Alia. We just became friends. There wasn't really anything else to it at that point. And then a few months later, Alia reached out to me and was like, "Hey, man is looking for a creator in residence. I love the conversation we had 3 months ago. Can we have a chat with the founder, see if an internship is right for you?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm up for that." I hopped onto a call with the founder, and then straight away in that interview, because we got on so well together, we liked each other's vibe. He was like, "How do you fancy an internship?" I agreed. We got in, and I started an internship for that summer. I worked for about 4 months, and then stopped when I came to university. Um, and like for me, that was the greatest turning point in my life because suddenly the channel that I'd created had opened up this network for me and this huge reach, and that had allowed me to actually get like a job out of it, a job that most people
Mm.
would spend years trying to get to. And it was just because I
Yeah,
was putting myself out there and conveying a my work ethic, but also like my personality and seeing whether people resonated with that and whether I'd be a good fit for them. Um, then coming into university, I studied mechanical engineering. Realized after about 3 months that it wasn't for me. Decided if I had another option, I would drop out. I spoke to James, the founder at Mana, and was like, "Hey, is there any work at all going?" He was like, "Hey, man, you perfect fit for this role that we're offering. You've obviously had work experience with us. We really like your work ethic, really like what you can do. How do you fancy being head of growth for Mana?" Instantly, I was like, "Yeah, done." Said, messaged the university. I was like, "Hey, I'd like to suspend my studies. Is that calm?" Yeah, they said fine. I dropped out of the university and began working full time while still living in my university accommodation, and I've been doing that for the past 4 months, and that leaves us to say
and you're enjoying it. It's good.
I'm absolutely loving it. Best decision I've ever made.
Let me ask you this question because I know loads of people that would love that sort of position within a startup. It's not running your own business, but it's as close as like because you're basically making a lot of decisions very senior in a really exciting startup. Like
Yeah,
it's what I do as well. My job as a head of growth, and I love it as well. It's the sort of decision making, the power and the creative freedom that you get is incredible. But
sure.
so for people listening, getting an internship might be fairly easy within a startup. You just have to like email them, like have some sort of rapport. You were quite lucky; they found you through the videos, fairly like kind of like that. How did you turn an internship into a head of growth position? That's the thing that's got a question mark over it. What did you do in the
Yeah.
internship that made you get to that role?
Well, that's the thing with the startup culture is because it's also early stage, you get to know the inner workings of the company. And then it's so much better if you are like a productive person, if you're adding value to that company. It's so much easier for them to hire or promote within the company as opposed to bringing someone new on. Because as soon as you bring someone new on, you have to learn the whole company like culture, you have to learn all of the workings, you have to align yourself with the mission, and that takes time, if not months. So getting into an internship within a company like that every moment that you're spending with them, you're preparing yourself for any other roles that you might experience within that company.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like the roles within startups are so uh, versatile. Like you do a bit of everything that you kind of tackling aspects of any role they might give you anyway, and you're building that experience within the company. So it's not like you need the experience previously. You learn it on the job, and then that basically builds you into the perfect candidate for them and for that role. If that makes any sense.
Mm. Yeah, I completely get you. And I think the key thing that you just mentioned, like just to highlight, was that work ethic. Because
Yeah.
excuse me, we have someone on our company that started as an intern. So for Wing, my other company, they started as an intern. They're still at school. Not that it matters for like me as a CEO, right? Like they came on board, they were incredible in terms of work ethic. They went out their ways to do so many things, and they got us even a few sales. And for me, it's like I don't care if you're 18. Like at the time, he was like maybe 17. I was like, I don't care. You're getting us all this value that I would expect someone older to get. And at the moment, like we promoted him to like a business development person. Now he's got equity within the company, and it's like, you know what I mean? Like he's come a long way since then.
Yeah.
But just because it doesn't matter your age, if you're ready, you're ready. Whereas in a
Agree.
corporate, it does matter sort of how long you've been at the company, because like the value is seen by like how long you've been there rather than the actual output that you deliver in a lot of instances. And
Yeah.
that's why corporates are a bit slow to like to do things, in my opinion. So I think that's a testament to like your hard work within the corporate, within the internship, within the startup at your internship. But that is very cool. What are the sort of like the key challenges that you've experienced? Because as you said, you're kind of learning on the job, and
Yeah.
it is a fairly senior position. So what are the key learnings that you've experienced, the key challenges you faced?
I think one of the key things is you've just got to accept that you won't know much to begin with, but no one will. Like, it's such a fresh environment. It's a new company with new problems, new issues to face, that no one's going to be like super prepared to tackle it. So you just got to have the confidence to get stuck in, learn what needs to be learned, and deliver as much as humanly possible to
Mm.
fit that like problem. So I think it's just about like having the confidence to accept that you don't know it to begin with, learn what's necessary, and then go from there to address the issue you're trying to solve. I think that's the greatest thing.
I'll tell you what I found really interesting and how I kind of came across you as an individual. I saw on
Yeah,
LinkedIn that you posted, I've just joined this company. I want to get to, I think it was like, was it 50,000 or 500
500,000,
users? 500,000. What was it?
500,000, yeah,
500,000. Yeah. So
500,000
just for people to understand, Jake put out a post on LinkedIn saying, I want to get Mana to 500,000 users in a year, right?
6 months.
6 months, which is like even harder. In 6 months'
Yeah.
time, that's what caught my attention. It's what caught a lot of other people's attentions. You're trying to make a really cool piece of content. I guess like a video around like growing a company, which I really like. Were you trying to make a video out of it? It would have been a cool video to make.
So yeah. Eventually, we'll have a like full video on exactly how we did it, and
That is
basically building out
cool.
the process.
That is cool. But like yeah. So how like why did you decide to do that? Are you on target? Like how? What are your kind of growth strategies that you've like? Yeah. What's the strategy?
Yeah, for sure. I guess it's like also aligns with a key learning is growth takes different forms depending on the aim of the company. So when I came on board with Mana, we were very much like a creator-oriented platform. We wanted to help creators to monetize and engage with their audience. So that prospect of 500,000 downloads would be achieved through leveraging influencers' audiences through social media and basically trying to just pack as many users into an app so that it gave creators growth prospect as well as that ability to monetize. I think that aligned very well with with the current company mission when I joined. But what I didn't realize is in startups, company missions are very subject to change. So like over
Exactly.
time, we've had so many different pivots that's affected like what our aims are with the growth that 500k download aim comes and goes. So at the start, that was the core focus, but now it's actually building like how can we focus on building a smaller audience that is super engaged, that the retention is
Mm.
like 70% after 30 days, things like that, and over time. it's almost like you work in sprints. What is the aim for the next 2 weeks? How can I get there as quick as possible? And what tactics can we employ to do that? And then, depending on the state of the markets, depending on how that progresses, and whether or not the company decides to pivot in a different direction to help to grow, help fundraise, help establish itself as a product that we can actually add value with. Um, it changes how we marketed the app and what the aims are. So that's a key learning for me is a head of growth role isn't just about attaining a download metric. It's about knowing what's best for the current product, how we can grow that in like aligned with fundraising, aligned with the values and value we're trying to add, and how
Yeah.
can we like build from there? Because it doesn't just stay as yeah, we need to hit 500,000 downloads, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think these sort of like numbers and metrics, they're really glamorized in say like media, especially on LinkedIn. Like people are like,
Yeah,
yeah, we just hit this number. But I would really argue that growing like slowly can also be a massive, it is a massive positive, I'd say. And like when I say growing slowly, it's like making sure the foundation of what you're building is very, very well set, so that once, yeah, as you said, the retention rates are very high for your initial users, so you know the foundation of your product is very strong. So
yeah,
if you welcome 500,000 users now, you know that 100,000 people will massively enjoy the product. So they not
exactly.
only will they come into the door, but they'll also stay. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people miss when it comes to like growth positions. Like for my company, it's the same thing. Like we don't want to get tons and tons of people from day one because
Yeah,
we're not ready for that. Whereas we do want to get tons and tons of people from, say, month 6, for instance. I'm just putting out a number. So I think that was a very, key learning for me and key learning for you is like going off the
yeah,
scale and like having all these like massive charts going up continuously isn't always a good thing. Um, Growing
agreed.
sustainably is the main objective, I would say. I don't know if you've experienced that too.
Yeah, for sure. I think another point to bring up with that as well is it's a very you've worked very closely with the development team because at the end of the day, growth isn't just outwards facing; it's inward facing too. You have to
Mm,
build out features and play on human psychology such that you can boost those metrics, like boost the retention, boost the engagement, and have people to enjoy the app. You can market the hell out of a terrible app and it not go anywhere. But if you have like a great app, the marketing becomes easier. So you almost have to the devs are great, but you almost have to take all of the research you're doing, all of the consumer perspectives, and like direct that into product development to
mm,
make sure that the product is something that is fit for market. And that is something that I kind of pushed out of mind when I had that 500,000 download aim. So that's kind of extended the timeline such that I want to have a product that's great for market before we start pushing it to the
mm.
masses.
I completely agree with you. Last question, Jake, before we wrap up the podcast. So for the 500,000
Yes.
users, is it something that like you're aiming for them? Like when do you think you'll hit it? Do you think like, and is that still an objective of yours?
It's a great question. I think the objective now is to create an app that is ready for those 500,000 users. And
Yeah.
once we've cracked that, that timeline is very malleable. But once we've cracked that, then the 500,000 download aim is reactivated. So right now,
Mm.
we're trying to create the perfect app for those users before we launch it to the users.
Amazing answer. I love that answer. Jake, it's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast. Yeah, I loved having
It's
you
been
on.
brilliant.
How can people stay in touch with you and what you're doing, like after the conversation's over?
Yeah, for sure. So if you want to follow along with my journey and managed journey, you can follow me on YouTube, Jake Clarke, or Instagram, Jake Clarke03. And you can also check out Mana. It's on the App Store, or if you want to find the web app, it's mana.live. Otherwise, really appreciate that, Sinner.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jake. We'll chat very soon. Thanks so much.